Good day, my dearest little wizard captains. My name is Adam Livingston, and I am the Bitcoin Wizard, your #1 source for Bitcoin and Bitcoin Treasury Company analysis. Ladies and gentlemen, meet the only publicly traded entity that treats Bitcoin accumulation the way CERN treats particle collisions. Violent, expensive, and scientifically inevitable, this is the Bitcoin Standard Treasury Company, or BSTR. From MSTR to BSTR, you gotta love that instant meme ability. Adam Back, yes, the same legendary cryptographer who weaponized math in 1997 so spam emails would need a gym membership, has decided hoarding sats at retail speed is for amateurs. He decided that being a huge investor in the blockchain group was not enough. This guy understands that treasuries are the suits adopting Bitcoin better than anybody. And now he's bolting turbochargers onto a balance sheet and feeding it pure BTC octane. Picture 30,021 coins locked tighter than Fort Knox's self-esteem. Then watch Cantor Fitzgerald swing by with a dump truck full of fiat to buy another 14,000. This isn't a miner, a DeFi carnival, or a meme coin with a dog mascot. This is a torque-optimized treasury monster built to inhale supply and exhale shareholder envy. For context, most companies right now are dipping a toe into Bitcoin and writing press releases. BSTR cannonballs in, drains the pool, and sells the water for scrap, because water doesn't have a halving schedule. By the time this deck hits slide 2, the treasury stack might already be heavier. Velocity is a law of physics, and Adam Back just made it a corporate charter. Alright, let's dissect. First, the treasury isn't starting with a polite appetizer of Bitcoin. It's opening with 30,021 BTC. 25,000 came straight from Adam Back's personal vault. Think of it as Hashcash's retirement plan. While another 5,021 BTC showed up from the kind of early adopters who still store seed phrases on papyrus. That single chunk makes BSTR the 4th largest corporate holder on Earth and the only one whose swag bag was funded by cryptographic blood, sweat, and zero-knowledge tears. Now take that fat pile of coin and bolt on $1.5 billion of fresh fiat via Cantor Fitzgerald. $500 million sits in straight equity, 3/4 is tucked into convertible notes that detonate into shares the moment the price chart starts looking like a ski jump, and the rest hides inside an 8% PIK preferred. Interest paid not in cash, but in the envy of every CFO still clinging to Excel macros. Toss in another $200 million of SPAC trust cash, assuming redemptions are kept on a diet, and you now have a war chest wide enough to buy roughly an additional 14,000 BTC at today's spot. The key nuance, the 5,021 BTC in that pipe arrives in kind. No vending machine fiat, pure sats forklifted directly into BSTR's cold storage. That means new shares get minted with Bitcoin already stapled to them, preserving BTC per share from day one instead of diluting it. It's the corporate equivalent of cloning yourself but giving each clone its own trust fund. And why Cantor? Because when you're siphoning supply at industrial scale, you hire professionals who understand prime broker plumbing, not influencers who memorize halving dates. Cantor's signature will reload this thing anytime the market fawns over the ticker, turning share price euphoria into another trip to the OTC desk. Every loop tightens the float, fattens the stack, and dares the rest of the S&P to keep pace. So quick recap, 30K coins locked in, $1 billion+ pacing at the gate, a capital structure designed to self-fund acceleration, and a leadership that literally helped write Bitcoin source material. If that doesn't jolt your time preference into low Earth orbit, check your pulse, because BSTR just made Bitcoin accumulation a full contact sport. A top 5 treasury off the starting block with this level of institutional capital. This is Hyperbitcoinization in real time. Everyone is jumping into the treasury game. If you think this is equivalent to altcoins, no offense, but you are an idiot. Forget vanilla buy and hold. BSTR weaponizes 5 torque levers that all conspire to jack up Bitcoin per share while everyone else is still waiting for committee approval. We have the in-kind BTC pipe. New shares aren't financed with soggy fiat, they're stapled to fresh sats at birth. That means every share hits the market preloaded like a USB stick already filled with classified documents. The treasury inflates, dilution deflates, shareholders eat dessert first. Deep in the money converts, the convertible notes sit so far below the surface they need a pressure suit. When the stock rips, note holders swap debt for equity, wiping USD liabilities while stuffing even more BTC onto the ledger. It's financial alchemy. Turn IOUs into immutable coin, no philosopher's stone required. Cantor Fitzgerald has a reload button. Whenever the ticker starts moonwalking, Cantor slaps an ATM on top and pipes fresh equity into the treasury. Wall Street gushes over momentum. BSTR quietly swaps the enthusiasm for additional Bitcoin, then whistles like nothing even happened. Liquidity becomes scarcity at the flick of a prospectus. There's an Adam Back credibility discount here. Hashcash's inventor walks into a bond roadshow and the cost of capital forgets how to count. VCs, hedge funds, and sovereign wealth desks all decide they'd rather lend at kindergarten rates than admit they don't grok cryptography. Result, cheaper money, more coin. And don't forget FASB's fair value uplift. Accounting rules finally acknowledge that Bitcoin sometimes goes up. Unrealized gains pile onto shareholder equity, expanding borrowing capacity without an extra share issued. Every quarterly markup turns goodwill into real-world collateral for, surprise, another BTC shopping spree. Synthesize those levers and you get a corporate organism that metabolizes cheap capital into scarce digital property on repeat. Nothing here relies on hash rate, weather-dependent miners, or marketing buzzwords. It's pure balance sheet physics calibrated by the guy whose proof-of-work math already runs the planet's hardest money. Let's zoom in on the fuel tank because this machine doesn't sip, it guzzles. First, the fiat $1.5 billion of it, think of that as Wall Street's collective midlife crisis fund. Instead of only buying yachts, they're wiring the cash to Adam Back so he can swap paper promises for digital plutonium. The stack is deliberately mixed. $400 million in straight equity, shares issued at high altitude to investors who finally realize you can't dollar cost average immortality. Up to $750 million in convertible notes, zero coupon, a 3-year fuse. The moment BSTR's chart looks like a vertical line, those bonds self-immolate into equity, leaving nothing behind but fresh sats in custody, and up to $350 million in PIK preferred. Add it up and you've got the single largest cash fire hose ever attached to a Bitcoin treasury, SPAC. Now the twist that turns torque into art, 5,021 BTC arrive in kind. It's the corporate equivalent of being born with a trust fund denominated in 12-word seed phrases. Why is that genius? Because every share minted against those coins is bulletproof against dilution. BTC per share stays lofty while the treasury inflates. It's like issuing new shares pre-vaccinated against fiat rot. The upshot is simple. While other companies hold shareholder meetings to debate a 1% allocation, BSTR frontloads a war chest that can buy 14,000 more BTC at today's spot before lunch, and does it without sacrificing a single sat from the opening stack. So memorize this slide. It's the balance sheet thermite that melts the supply constraints before the verdict of hyperbitcoinization is even in. In the arms race for digital scarcity, BSTR just rolled out the flamethrower. Here's the league table of corporate sat stackers ranked by who's hoarding, who's still shopping, and who's been at it long enough to grow a beard. Strategy, 58 months deep, they've amassed 608k BTC and keep topping off with an ATM so bottomless it might qualify as a liquidity event horizon. Impressive, but they burned off half a decade to get there. Marathon, the miner turned treasury hybrid, around 50k BTC after 52 months and a $1 billion ATM shelf that's basically a standing order for dilution. Respect the hustle, but powering Wyoming with flared gas still costs time and electricity. 21 is the new kid on the SPAC block, 42k BTC promised, not yet delivered, and a $585 million pipe to make it happen. Great press clippings, zero seasoning, think of it as a pre-launch energy drink. Plenty of sugar, no caffeine yet. And BSTR, a zero-day stack of 30,021 BTC on track to hit 44k the moment the pipe wires settle, backed by the 1.5 billion in raw fiat plus Cantor's ATM war chest, and they've been at it exactly 0 months. That's like skipping kindergarten and showing up to the SATs with a perfect score already penciled in. The takeaway amongst the top 4 here. Strategy proved the playbook, Marathon mined the lumber, 21 is printing the flyers, but BSTR rolled in with its own bulldozer and a permit to clear-cut the remaining supply. And they've only just turned the key in the ignition. Let's time warp a little bit forward and be ridiculously conservative, and spell how BSTR can be the number 2 biggest holder of Bitcoin on Earth. Let's take the base case of the pipe only, assume the accountants move like molasses and only the 1.5 billion in pipe funds. At a conservative 120k average BTC, that nets 12,500 new coins and parks the treasury at around 42,500 BTC. That alone matches what Marathon sweated half a decade to mine. And then the trust cash rolls in. Picture a low redemption miracle where the SPAC trust coughs up its 200 million. Another 1,700 BTC drop into custody, lifting the pile to 44,200, the financial equivalent of finding an extra magazine after you thought you were empty. And a single ATM reload, now the fun one, shares rip, Cantor opens the ATM, and 500 million worth of equity sails into the market at 140k BTC. That buys 3,600 coins and vaults the stack to 47,800 BTC. Translation: BSTR overtakes Marathon without plugging into a single ASIC. And then a double reload plus a note conversion, 2 ATM taps plus convertible notes tipping at 160k BTC unleash another 1.5 billion, the rough math another 9,400 coins. End balance 57,200 BTC, the number 2 spot achieved in a matter of months, not years. The moral: every scenario features coin growth, none require a price moonshot, and all plays out before the subsidy drops to 1.5 BTC per block. By the time the halving starves miners of fresh supply, BSTR will have already banked a war chest big enough to make hodlers blush, and competitors hyperventilate. BSTR is going to be able to weaponize everything. Step 1, acquire coin, inflate the NAV, we drop fresh BTC onto the balance sheet, net asset value balloons like a pufferfish on Red Bull, analysts redraw their charts, Reddit starts counting commas. Step 2, the share price gaps up because valuation math trails reality like a drunk GPS. The stock price sprints to catch the NAV. Momentum desks pile in, algorithms high-five each other, and suddenly yesterday's cap table looks quaint. While the chart's doing its impression of Everest, Cantor opens the equity spigot. Shares are sold above the NAV, meaning every dollar raised buys more than $1's worth of Bitcoin. Dilution only if you consider giving shareholders extra coin a problem. Step 4, convertibles self-detonate, those deep in the money notes that we previously mentioned. They flip into equity at a strike so low it feels retro. Debt evaporates, USD leverage disappears, and the treasury stack grows without anyone wiring another penny. Step 5, repeat until the supply gets nervous. Each loop leaves more BTC in cold storage and fewer shares in the free float. Ratcheting BTC per share higher, the market's admiration literally finances the next purchase, like applause that prints its own encore. The net result, a kinetic sculpture of greed and scarcity spinning faster every time someone screams to the moon. BSTR doesn't just ride bullish sentiment, it distills it into additional satoshis bottle-aged on a public ledger forever. Everything you've seen so far, big stack, bigger war chest, self-funding flywheel, could in theory be copied, yet no other firm can actually replicate BSTR's blend of DNA, geopolitical optionality, and capital market leverage. Let's unpack the differentiators layer by layer. Number 1, cypherpunk founding equity. Adam Back didn't just write a proof-of-work algorithm, he spent 3 decades cultivating a trust graph that spans miners in Russia, bond desks on Wall Street, and lightning builders running code on a Raspberry Pi in Nairobi. That social capital translates to information arbitrage. BSTR hears about serious OTC blocks or distressed mining treasuries hours, sometimes days before rivals even refresh their Glassnode dashboards. In markets where liquidity is measured in kilobytes, that timing edge is priceless. Most treasuries rely on either cheap debt or equity hype. BSTR welded both into a 2-engine configuration. Convertible notes priced with a near zero coupon anchor the floor, cheap leverage when the market sleeps, ATM equity taps exploit euphoric liquidity peaks, equity when the market froths, and in-kind BTC tranches preserve sats per share regardless of fiat swings. The result is a dynamically optimized cost of capital curve. Debt when rates behave, equity when multiples go parabolic, and raw coin whenever insiders ink a deal. Few other public vehicles carry these these 3-mode transmissions. Number 3, Global Regulatory Arbitrage Suite. Bakkt's Blockstream Orbit already maintains legal entities in Canada, the EU, Japan, and the US. You cannot forget about Cantor Fitzgerald's Beltway force field. Behind the spreadsheets lurks political insulation. Cantor's decade-deep lobbying apparatus, the same one that shepherded Treasury bond trading into the electronic era, can muzzle hostile rulemaking long enough for BSTR to cement its Treasury scale. If ETFs face redemption pressure or miners get carbon tax squeezed one day, Cantor's policy team is already booking meetings to carve out exemptions. Strategic foresight beats after-the-fact litigation every time. Investors know that Adam Back is not to sell. A reputation for diamond handing since sub-$100 prices creates an implicit supply sink premium. Each BTC he custodians feels more off the market than the same unit in a miner's treasury. That perception alone tightens the float, nudging price action in BSTR's favor versus ostensibly larger holders that occasionally liquidate for capex. Am I throwing shade at miners? Yeah, maybe a little. There's also an integrated Bitcoin native infrastructure at play. Through Blockstream, BSTR could settle internal treasury operations over Liquid, broadcast audits via satellite, and issue secured notes backed by multi-sig addresses visible in real time. Transparency at that granularity annihilates counterparty risk assumptions, dropping the risk premium baked into bond yields. Lower yields equals more Bitcoin borrowed per dollar, compounding the whole stack faster. Combine all of the above and you unlock a qualitative flywheel analysts can't quantify but can't ignore. Trust in founder equals a lower cost of capital equals larger BTC buys equals higher market cap equals greater index inclusion equals deeper liquidity equals an even lower cost of capital. It's valuation reflexivity without the usual bubble froth because every financing round is asset backed by something provably scarce. Here's the takeaway you should tattoo on your frontal lobe. BSTR starts life with 30k coins plus a 1.7 billion refueling hose and a founder who can recite the Bitcoin white paper from muscle memory. Before the 2028 halving even flickers on crypto Twitter, it can plausibly crest 60k or 70k BTC without mining a single block or asking the bonds market for mercy. That pacing makes every other treasury look like they're collecting pennies with tweezers. The capital stack is engineered so each burst of market enthusiasm self-funds the next coin grab. Equity when FOMO reigns, converts when rates behave, and in-kind tranches that never suffer fiat shrinkage. Every loop shrinks the share float, fattens the stack, and rewires valuation math in real time. Add Cantor's lobbying shield, Blockstream's global rails, and Adam Back's cypherpunk aura, and you've got an equity that turns corporate finance into a supply suffocation device. When the subsidy drops to 1.5 BTC per block, miners will beg for coin. BSTR will already have it warehoused like surplus tungsten. So if your thesis is own more Bitcoin over time, congratulations, you've just met the publicly traded embodiment of that sentence. Everyone else is sprinting. BSTR starts at the finish line and builds the track behind it. My name is Adam Livingston, and if you enjoyed this content, please subscribe to the channel and let me know what you'd like me to comment on next. Have a terrific day. Class dismissed.